Hello and welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture Podcast. As always, I am your co-saint, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about Quiet Place.
Spoiler alert for those of you who have not yet seen the movie. Really, it's mostly seen the movie because there's not a whole lot of dialogue or sound in the movie at all. Which is good. It really adds to the aesthetic, but spoiler alert, as we are going to be talking about the entire thing now, including the ending.
Yes.
So, our summary and review. My summary is aliens have invaded the Earth, I believe. It's aliens. I'm not quite sure. They didn't really make that clear. And are... killing off anything that makes a noise, which I think would be very difficult on planet Earth, considering that everything makes a noise, but only over a certain decibel, and then they come after, like humans and animals and all this other stuff and kill them and, I guess, eat them. And that's it. A family survives.
Okay. All right. So this is a story about a family who has to be very, very quiet. And they have to come across certain circumstances that are very difficult to be quiet in, but they have to be quiet in order to survive.
Sorry, I spent way too much time thinking about the aliens.
You did, yes. Mine for one, was a better summary, I think.
It was. I got stuck on the aliens for some reason.
You just really love aliens.
I like aliens.
Aliens.
I don't have an associate's degree in physical education. Then I can be on television and talk about how aliens came to the planet Earth first.
You have to grow out your hair some more. It's a little too short.
My beard is a nice length for that, though.
Yep.
So I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was very good. I think if I had actually seen it in a quieter place rather than just... Like, if I had seen it in the theater, where everybody's going to be quieter, I think it would have been better.
Where you forced me to not talk?
Well, not just you, but it's just, our house is not quiet. We've got a toddler, we've got so many things that make noise that it's kind of, it takes you out of it a little bit.
Yep, we live on a busy-ish street.
Yeah. Which... For some of our earlier episodes, before I started editing a little bit better, I think most of our listeners would be able to say, "Yeah, we know." So I really enjoyed it. I would give it a blessing.
All right. I too enjoyed it. I was a little disappointed in the scare factor. I wasn't ever scared. I felt like anxiety and anticipation, but I wasn't really scared. I was under the impression that it was more scary than it really was.
Okay.
But maybe it's because of the fact that we watched it at home, not in a quiet movie theater. That could have been why. But I really liked the fact that they incorporated a lot of sign language into the movie. I mean, obviously, because one of the characters is deaf anyway.
Yeah.
But the fact that they actually, that was how they communicated, I think was really good because you don't see the use of sign language in a lot of media unless it's kind of some kind of I don't know, trope or just a one-off storyline kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas they have a token disabled character, and the disabled character happens to be deaf.
Exactly. Yep.
So, and then then the person who's actually playing the character isn't deaf.
Yep. I believe I believe the actress was is deaf. Did you read that?
I didn't read that. But I do believe that she is. I would believe it.
I'm going to look it up real quick. Continue on talking, and I'll tell you.
Well, speaking of the anxiety and the anticipation, and please excuse our dog in the background. If you have some anxiety about hearing the clack, clack, clack in the background, that is our dog. I really felt like the movie in and of itself, I think is kind of an allegory for the way that we are currently living in. Now, I know that the actor, why do I keep wanting to call him Jim? I just, keep thinking Jim when he comes up in my head because, he was
Krasinski.
John Krasinski. I think John Krasinski, so many people kind of associate him with that Benghazi movie because he was like right as soon as he was out of the office, he like bulked up and became what's his face in the Benghazi movie. So they kind of associate him with this idea of conservative politics and stuff like this, whereas a lot of us who spent 12 years watching him in the office.
Yep.
That we associate him with Jim, and so we think of him as a little bit more comedic and a little bit more kind of on that level of acting and skill.
Kind of like the boy next door, the goofy boy next door.
The goofy boy next door that almost every girl had a crush on the character Jim rather than John Krasinski. But you're just nodding. Did you also have a crush on Jim?
Well, everybody had a crush on Jim.
Okay.
I feel like that's kind of a
given?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you going to fight me on that?
No, I'm not going to fight you on that. I guess I had a crush on Pam's because she was kind of like the girl next door kind of character, and so. But anyway, what I'm getting at is that I think it's very much an allegory for the way that we live in now, especially with our differences of opinion and our differences of ways of seeing the world, is that we are kind of forced into this kind of more narrow kind of way of seeing things. It's a very quiet way of seeing things. Is that, especially now on social media, is if you express any opinion either way, is that sometimes people will jump out and just jump all over you, will attack you. And that, just showing that one, yes, your words have consequences, but you also have to choose what you say very carefully. And I think this is very much, the whole movie was an allegory for that, in showing that, not just what you say, but the way that you do things, the way that, like you have to be very careful about everything. Tiptoe. Well, go through life barefoot. I don't know what that's an allegory for. I don't know how that fits into my metaphor, but
I don't know. We'll think about it.
We'll think about it. We'll circle back on that. Well, I think this is very true of almost any really traumatic event. It really changes just the way of life, just how everything kind of interacts. Now, whether you believe that our current president is a good president or not, which I fall into the latter field, or the is it the latter field or the earlier? Anyway, I don't believe he's a good president, but he has changed the landscape, and not for the better.
Yeah,
is that I think our country has become a much worse place to be in because of his presidency, and this is why I feel like this movie was an allegory for that. It's because it has changed our way of life. And as I've said multiple times on this show before, is that media is a mirror to society, especially for what is going on, and very much so in the way that how we take in our media, how we take in our stories.
Yeah.
Like, when you watch this, did you see that kind of play out? Like how you took it in? Did you see sort of the way that a parallel with social media, in a way?
Like can you further explain like what you?
Where you say anything like in favor of or not in favor of anything? How people will attack you for that, or that you will like. Unless your words are chosen very carefully. Well,
I mean, yeah, everybody has that like one random friend from high school who will all of a sudden come out of the woodworks and berate you about why your opinion is wrong. But I would also say your comment about how this presidency has made the United States a worse place to live in for a lot of people. On the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, it has made it a more welcoming place for bigots and for racists to come out of the woodwork. Because now they feel like their opinions are now
or now elevated. Yes. Yeah. But I think even so, like they're not without consequence for those words.
Oh, no. They always complain about getting fired after they have their racist rant.
Well, that's the thing is that we have gone into now the age of a very public social media shaming. There's a great John Ronson book that we've listened to before about social shaming and about how, that the early kind of Twitter social shamings that lost people their jobs. Social shamings.
That's really hard to say.
Yeah. But this is the way that it changes our lives. And I think that we as human beings, that as we go throughout our history, we see that whenever like these big traumatic events happen and they change all of our society, human society as a whole throughout the entire globe, as it were, these almost universal changes for humanity, that they change the way that we view stories. Mm-hmm. And I think that this was something very interesting that I started thinking about with this movie, is that how did these aliens change the way that these families who survived the initial onslaught, how did it change the way that they took in stories?
Ah, yeah.
Like you have that scene of where the father and the mother are dancing, and they can only listen to the music through the earbuds because that's you can't hear that outside of their general area.
Yeah, but you'd also have to be really careful about, of course, volume, because we all know. Yeah. We all have that one coworker who listens so loud that you know what song they're listening to.
Unless you've been to way too many concerts where you were sat right next to the speakers. In order to see the concert. Yeah. And I've lost a lot of my hearing, so I wouldn't know.
Went to a lot of Christian rock concerts, did you?
No comment. Well, and this creates a new normal for them. And you see the way that they're playing Monopoly. They're not going to play with the traditional pieces like the top hat or the car or the dog or what have you. They're going to have those little felt pieces that they had. Mm-hmm. That this changes things, and I'm sure that almost every family who is still doing those board games and doing any of these things are going to be doing things that are much quieter. That this changes the way that their normal has become. Yeah, and I want to talk about this with stories. I'm actually currently listening to a podcast, stuff to blow your mind, about how narrative and religion, how those stood the test of time. The most popular ones stood the test of time. And I was thinking about this in relation to this movie, especially because of this big traumatic event, how they're going to take in their stories then, and how this is an allegory for us as well in the modern age of enduring this presidency, and that's changing almost universally how humans interact with our world. Yeah. Is how we take in our stories now. And especially with this movie, and thinking about that and thinking about how religions take in their stories. Like we weren't the original audience for the Bible. Like, no. Especially like Genesis. Genesis was written to an audience that was in exile, was trying to tell, the Jewish people, these are your stories. These are your stories from back in Israel, when we were in Israel before we were taken into Babylon, into this exile. And, we have no idea how their metaphors and how all of those things that they said work out. The podcast used an example of a grim fairy tale that didn't really kind of stand the test of time, about donkey cabbage. What? It's a story about this guy and magical elements, and he finds cabbage patches. Okay. And one of the cabbage patches turns people into donkeys, and the other one turns them into humans.
And the other one makes babies.
No.
Cabbage Patch Kids?
Yes. Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
And so like we don't know what they were getting at because we're so far removed from that. We're like several traumatic events away from that story and the meaning of that story to the people that it was originally written to.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing with those religious texts, with these religious stories, and especially in this movie, thinking about how that relates to our lives and how are they going to move on from then? Like in Quiet Place 2, how are they going to recreate the world after this? I guess, are things going to be a lot quieter?
Well, I don't know because, we're kind of on a cliffhanger. I would like to think that they destroy the 3 monsters in the area, but here's the thing. That's the 3 monsters
in the area.
That's
definitely not an invasion force. You don't have only 3 people in an invasion force.
But, I mean, if that's 3 in just kind of like the valley that they were in, like where I grew up, it's Yellowstone Valley. That's where Billings, Montana is. And really, if you think about it, the area itself is not very big. So 3 of those monsters could definitely like keep track of that valley. So I think for the area that they were in, which in my mind was in that scene when he's like lighting the fire and then you can see all the other fires of all the other families that are still out there. That I think that's as far as those 3 monsters were. Okay. So in my mind, that's the area that those monsters were in. Yeah. So I have a feeling that they will probably get a little bit more comfortable since the 3 major creatures are gone.
Well, you and probably have like these major like air raid siren like super speakers with that feedback loop ready to go in case they show up again.
Well, that's but how are they going to communicate with somebody about that? Because, I mean, I think, he had Morse code that I think that he was... Yeah. But he can't, he
didn't contact anybody. You saw that he had crossed through so many different frequencies. Yeah. So,
but we do know that there's other people out there because we know that there's other families out there lighting the torches, which is what kind of you can see the sense of relief he sees when he counts all of them and he's like, okay.
Well, and I think my point is that even when, and I think what this movie does a very subtle way is saying that you can never go back. You can never go back to the way things were. And I mean, this is very, I mean, it very clearly shows through the kid at the very beginning. He's wanting to play with that toy that made noise, the rocket that made noise. And like, I'm going to get emotional thinking about it because I think of, my son who loves to, play with toys that make noise. And like, we can't go back to that, like after that. And that's thinking about this movie, and especially with my point here is that all of our words have consequences now that social media has become such a minefield of a place that you have to choose your words carefully, that we can't go back to the stupid, silly jokes that we used to put on Twitter and the pictures of food and cats all over everything, because that's not who we are anymore.
That era is gone.
Yeah. And we've gone through this traumatic event of this alien presidency that is, made things worse for a lot of people. So, I think the major thing that I took away from this was that, choosing our words carefully, but also that we can't go back and we shouldn't long for the way things used to be, because we're not going to go back to that. Hopefully we can make things better. We can make a better world for ourselves, but we can't go back to just being, as the young folk put it, unwoke.
Oh my God. Oh Miguel. So I'm going to focus on something a little bit more, I guess, positive.
Okay.
So as I was trying to research like different ideas and try to get different viewpoints on this movie, because I like to kind of see what other people are talking about, see if people are thinking about the same things I'm thinking about, that kind of stuff. I kept on coming across all of these articles that were like, A Quiet Place is really a Christian movie, and A Quiet Place is pushing like Christian family values.
I think this is because he was in that Benghazi movie.
I think it's also because the parents were in, like, quote, traditional roles.
Yeah.
But then again...
Heteronormative roles?
Yes, yeah, heteronormative roles. But her being pregnant, she's not going to go out hunting. You know what I mean? Like, she's pregnant. Like, you got to, at a certain point in time, you got to, you know, make sure that she's safe. But one of them had mentioned how they applauded the fact that he made the daughter stay home and took the son out. But in my mind, it wasn't that he was trying to, like, okay, now it's your turn to, you know...
Reinforce gender roles?
No, I don't think that. I think that he had already taken his daughter out. Like, he had already showed her that. Like, she already knows how to walk in the wild. I guess that's how to walk in the wild.
Yeah.
And now it's time to teach his son how to do that, who is still scared because of what happened to their youngest child. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that it had anything to do. I don't think really he was trying to push any, like,
agenda.
No, I don't think so. I think it was just, hey, let's make a movie about a family who has to be quiet, you know? And they just kind of happened to fall into just, like, the set roles. But anyway, and something that really bothered me, I'm going to get to my point eventually, but another thing that really bothered me was that the fact that they kept on putting on, like, Christian family values. Like, it's Christian family values that they're reinforcing. And the more I read into the articles, the more I'm like, that's just a healthy family. You know, like, the parents love the kids. The parents are trying to take care of the kids. Like, that's just a family. Like,
it doesn't matter what the genders of the parents are. I mean, this
well, not
movie...
just the genders. I'm talking about the fact that they were focused on Christian.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter about the genders. It doesn't matter about the religion. It's just, that's what families do.
No, exactly. And I mean, it does pass the Kathy test that we made up in Moana, that, you know, you can replace the gender of almost anybody in the movie, well, except for
I was about to say,
the
to
mom,
be fair,
because you can't really be male and pregnant, but, you know.
Well, you can.
You could have had a gallstone?
No.
Okay.
No, you can still identify as being male, and you can still also have a child.
Okay, no, I see what you're saying. No,
yeah.
No, I was talking about being cis male and...
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
No, okay, I'm broadening my definitions.
Okay.
I'm being more inclusive. But anyway, those articles just, like, I just was like, no, like... You're so happy about this when really, like, that's not the point. That's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is that an already established family, which can be a mix of anybody, is trying to not only survive, but in a way still thrive in the difficult situation that they have been given in.
Yeah.
And that's really what I think it really boiled down to. Because part of being in a loving family is being able to thrive out of those difficult situations. And I mean, not all families come away whole. I mean, heck, they didn't even come away whole.
No.
You know, they lost 2 family members in the course of the whole entire movie. So, and we don't know too. Yes, because the boy and the father.
Yeah. I was trying to think. Yeah, the baby was with I was like, where was the baby at the end? I can't remember where the baby was at the end.
The baby was in the arms of the brother.
It was in the arms of the boy, yeah.
Yes. But it kind of reminded me of I don't know if we hear it as much now, but I have heard the question before, like, why do people have a family in this time or in this country or in this scenario when there is famine, like when your family's having hard times, like why are people extending their family in XYZ?
Yeah.
And, you know, at a point in my life, I kind of agreed with them. At a point in my life when, like, I didn't know if we were really going to have a family or not. There's a certain point where I'm like, well, maybe I don't want one because there is all of these things going on in the world. Like, there's global warming that's getting out of control. I mean, this was before Trump, of course, so I couldn't say, like, our president was that bad because it was Obama at the time, so I couldn't complain. But still, like, there's a lot of people who are our age, who are millennials and younger, some also older generations too, who actively chose not to have a family because they felt like it was their civic duty as a person of the world, a citizen of the world, to not add to the world's problems by adding on people to the world. I've heard of it before. I mean, I get it. You know, I'm not going to knock you down for not wanting to have kids for that. In fact, kudos to you. I mean, you have stepped above the expectations that society has put upon you, and you are doing what you feel in your heart is right. And good job for you.
Well, and this is a lot of and I should say that as I've talked about before, I do belong to a group of former evangelical people on Facebook and Twitter, on social media, and a lot of them talk about how, especially with women, this whole gender role that's all you're seen. You're seen as a baby maker.
Yep.
That's your entire purpose of being.
Yeah.
And I think this is, I mean, you know, stepping beyond that is I mean, having children is your choice. Whether or not you should reproduce is your choice, and that's the whole idea behind the, you know, the group name of pro-choice.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's your body, it's your choice whether or not you bring, you know, other people in the world, and that's between you and your partner if you want to do that or not.
Yep.
I mean,
or you
even
and yourself.
Even you and yourself. I was going to say, because you don't even have to have a partner. So,
well, and in this movie, I know I already heard like the people in the background going, you know, why did she go ahead and get herself knocked up in this type of scenario? Like, you thought it. I know you thought it. I'm just pointing at the general air at this point in time, but I know you thought it, at least at one point in time, because I mean, having a baby in silence, having a baby, not just like the labor part, but actually like having a baby, like a person, and trying to keep them silent is impossible.
As we discovered during Captain America Civil War.
It is impossible. Like I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. In all fairness, it wasn't that bad when we took him there.
Yeah, he was a newborn.
He was a newborn. He wasn't too loud. But anyway, and it was Mother's Day, so
yeah,
la on them, all the haters. Anyway, so I mean, that was their choice to go ahead. They knew she was pregnant. I don't know if they would have even felt safe at this point in time to have an abortion, because I'm assuming there's no clinics around anymore.
Yeah.
There's probably not any neighbors who know how to do one safely, you know? So it was probably like, well, this is the best case that we know of that will make it to where she has a better chance, like the mom has a better chance of living.
Yeah.
So I can't knock them down for that. You know, I get it. Also, too, when you have a loss of a child, you do have that kind of longing of not necessarily like replacing the child, but kind of like
filling the void,
or like soft, like making the family a little bit more, I don't want to say whole, because it's never whole when a child passes away, but at least bring some joy back into the family.
Yeah.
You know? So I get it. I get why they, you know, decided to continue on with her pregnancy.
Well, and I think she was pregnant at during the beginning scene, too. I wasn't sure.
I can't remember, because I know that there was some time between the two, so I don't know if she was or not. But still, like, they could have decided, like, nope, this is too risky. You know, we've already lost one kid. Like, bringing in another child into this world is going to put our other two alive children in danger, which is something people honestly have to think about when they're deciding whether or not they're going to keep a child or keep a pregnancy, is how is this going to affect my other children who are living right now? And is it going to take resources away from them? So it was a hard decision to make. And I am not going to shame Emily Blunt's and John Krasinski's characters into the decision. Like, I'm not going to shame them based on the decision that they made, because I don't know their full background. I don't know what their thinking was.
Yeah.
And we're all human. So they decided that they were just going to push on through. Literally and figuratively, just push on through. And they planned the best that they could. And people in real life scenarios where they are giving birth or they're having a family, just in general, in dangerous times, it does involve a lot of planning. Mm-hmm. In fact, the families who are trying to come up to the United States to get away from the troubles that they face in their own home country, that involves a lot of planning. And you kind of have to outweigh the pros and cons when it comes to that. Yeah, and, clearly they did. They had, I thought their plan was brilliant. They, built a bunker underground. They had, this cool crib thing that was, padded, and they had an oxygen mask for the baby, too. So, if the baby was crying, they could just throw it in there. But my thing, I was kind of, side note, how were they going to keep a toddler from talking? I can't get my kid to stop jabbering or making noises. So I don't know how they're going to do it with the toddler. But anyway. But maybe because the toddler doesn't hear them talking or doesn't have that kind of feedback.
Yeah, we'll learn the different communication.
Yeah, so maybe they won't really talk or make too many noises. But everybody cries.
Yeah.
Everybody makes noises when they're sad, so I don't know. Anyway, that's just me going off on a different rabbit trail. But, and when it comes to different countries that are having different troubles, especially when it comes to famine and war, you do actually end up seeing the birth rate drop. Part of that being, one, when there's not a lot of resources around, fertility rates just drop because our bodies are somehow weirdly connected with our with our surroundings and know when is it not a good time to have a kid. But then also too, we see that there's still babies born. Mm-hmm. So the birth rate doesn't drop completely. And ultimately, they're going to have to make the best decisions and make the best out of a crappy situation. Yeah. And that's exactly what this family did. They tried to gather up as much supplies as they could. They tried to plan as much as they could. Heck, even us, when we've been in some pretty crappy situations, we've had to bunker down and okay, this is the plan. We got to get rid of this stuff in order to make things work. We got to start doing this to make things work. We got to, completely shift our goals a little bit. I'm talking about specifically when one of us doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
That kind of shifting things around.
Oh, you mean me?
I just said one of us. I did not say you.
I'm the one who's been more frequently out of a job in this relationship, so.
I was trying to make it broad. But anyway, when we come across those scenarios, when we come across those difficult times, you and I, even though it's nothing compared to what other people go through in the world, and I understand that, but with us, when we come across those times, it's almost as if it's mechanical now, okay, this is happening. This is what we got to do. We know what we got to do in order to make it work. Let's have it. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's really what it takes for a family, no matter what the family looks like, to thrive in difficult times. It's just kind of this is the fact. It's really crappy right now. These are the things we can do. These are the things we can't do. Let's just plan.
Yep.
So I guess ultimately the theme of this movie is to plan. No,
to plan.
Is to plan.
Is to not have Doritos in the house anymore. No more noisy food.
But it's okay because Doritos almost came out with those chips that were not so noisy for the ladies.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't hear about that?
No.
They ended up not doing it because they had so much backlash because people were like, what? Like, why? Look it up.
Okay, I will. The principles in the parable that we found today are, mine was the silence is golden, that words have consequences, that now more than ever, you need to choose your words very carefully, and that how we're going to go, we can't go back to how it was before. So we need to think of ways to move forward. And we talked about thriving and planning in difficult circumstances. Mm-hmm. And I think those are, good things that we pulled from this movie that doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue.
Yeah, for something that was pretty quiet.
Yeah.
We came to a good place.
Yes.
We came to a
quiet place.
Quiet place.
Anyway, these are the things that we've been working on. We just finished Legion Season 2, and oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's, I had to brainstorm just like right before we started recording the episode because I needed to get it out of my head. There's a lot there, and it's not like in the same way as watching Handmaid's Tale Season 2 was. It's more, brings you into the madness of the characters are feeling. Yeah. So.
And I feel like definitely there has to be like a trigger warning associated with Legion, especially like the last episode.
Yes. So next week in our 2-part episode, probably, there will be a trigger warning.
Yes.
So that's what's going to come up next week is Legion Season 2. We did finish Magician Season 1. I know that Kathy's either started listening to the book or is waiting on the book.
I'm really bad about, like, I don't want to get behind in my podcasts, but I also know I want to listen to this book.
Yeah.
So I haven't listened to the book as much as I want, so I apologize because I love my podcasts.
It's all right. We still have a lot of things on our plate for what we're going to be working on. Extinction, How It Ends, both movies on Netflix, Mr. Robot Season 3. We're going to put off Mr. Robot Season 3 because that's also another one where the madness is a little heavy. Mm-hmm. So to distance ourselves after Legion, we're going to have to put that off for a little bit. 7 Seconds, Ozark Season 2, which comes out at the end of the month, Deadpool 2, First Reformed, Hereditary, Solo, Won't You Be My Neighbor, and Castle Rock Season 1, which I'm looking forward to Castle Rock. I completely forgot to put it on the list last week, but it's another Hulu. It's what took the time slot from Handmaid's Tale Season 2 after that ended. So that's Stephen King's novel, which I think already had a television series on Sci-Fi.
I was about to say, there was already a Castle Rock.
Yeah, it wasn't called Castle Rock. It was called something else. I think like Avalon or something on Sci-Fi. But anyway, it wasn't well seen, which is why I think they got the rights to do it again. So those are the things. He has a
history of having his stuff redone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the miniseries for the why am I blanking on it?
It.
No, not It, because It is getting a 2-movie thing. Maybe.
The Shining.
Shining. Thank you. I think the miniseries for The Shining was much better than Kubrick's movie, but that's just me. I'm not a huge Kubrick fan, so,
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, if you have any thoughts about this episode or any of our previous episodes, come find us on social media. You can also give us a call at our Google Voice number, which I completely forgot to write down, but we'll get that to you next week. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can send us an email at honestfaithconvos@gmail.com or find us on our website, thehonestfaith.com. With all of that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.